Hey guys, it's me, Mr. 250, and welcome back to Higurashi. So, we're going to be doing a little bit more today. I do want to mention before I get started that I'm going to be on vacation for a week, so I won't really be doing anything for that period of time. And I'll try to get through an hour today. My throat's feeling a little bit sore right now, but I think I can do an hour. But after this, it, won't be anything for about a week. So anyway, last time, one of the last things we did, if not the last, was had the damn construction site manager die. So we should be able to do this one now. Let's get started. I don't know what to say. I want to say something, but I can't think of the right words. I can only sigh.
Oi-san! 探したんすよ。課長から手配写真の。
静かにせい。ここは騒ぐ部屋ではないぞ。
As Kumagai barged into the room, the old coroner quickly snapped back at him.
すみません。ですね。課長が容疑者の手配写真について。
それ小宮山君に相談してくれませんかね。ちょいと私じい様と話がありまして。すぐに上がりますと上に行っといてください。
わかりました。
Kumagai ran out of the autopsy room with the same haste he entered in.
賑やかな男だのう。
おやっさんだったらやかましいって言って。
お前さんも少し上に戻った方がいいぞい。ここの空気は慣れんやつには合わん。
そうですね。あんまりサボってると私もげんこつを食らっちまいそうです。
獅子骨界隈じゃチンピラも避けて通るお前さんをツモの切り方が悪いとげんこつを食らわせてきたのは後にも先にもこいつだけだったのう。
容赦のない人だったな。本当の親父よりげんこつもらった気がしますよ。
本当も嘘もないわい。お前さんが本当の親父だと信じてたならこいつも本当の親父だ。
My real father passed away in Nagoya. He was unlucky. If he wasn't given the order to move to a plant in Nagoya, he wouldn't have died in an air raid. If he could have rode it out another half a year or so, then the war would have been over. I was sad, of course, but I was grown up enough by then that I didn't cry into the ground like my mother did. But people feel sadness in different ways. For some people, it comes all at once as an overwhelming wave, but others feel sadness gradually, over a long period of time. I think I was the latter. When he was alive, I only thought of him as annoying. In my mind, I even cursed him with questions about why he avoided the draft. And I thought my feelings towards him would always be the same. Then the war ended. As I saw families and friends being reunited with joy as they came home from the front. It finally happened. I grieved for my father's death. Japan was filled with people who were sad and full of despair. I knew I wasn't the only one whose life ended up that way. But I remember I was very, very heartbroken. After the war, the nation completely changed. As a policeman, the environment I worked in went through sudden changes too. In order to forget my sorrow, the only thing I could do was to devote myself to my work.
当時、私はいろんな取り締まりをやらされてましてね。食料とか生活必需品を非合法な手段で買い込む人たちを。
That's some illegal rice. Slow down there, criminal scum.
そりゃあもうゾロゾロ引っかかりましたっけ。僕らのあたりは物が豊かで、そういった物を手に入れるのにかなり都合が良かった。
Rice like a code word for something? Oh no, like the actual rice. Okay. After the war, Japan faced a chronic shortage in food supply. To those ends, the nation instituted a food rationing program by signing the Food Control Act. But the rations the government provided weren't even close to being enough to feed families. Therefore, people had no choice other than buying food and supplies on the black market. The government hardly had enough food for rations, but there was somehow plenty on the black market. The dealers there sold it at outrageous prices, and some of them became quite wealthy. The Sonozaki family made their money through that black market, but that's another story. The government didn't bother arresting these dealers. For, with their money, they were able to buy off the top members of the police department. Instead, they decided to go after the people buying the goods, and even confiscated the rice they bought by selling everything they owned. Yeah, I remember that. Wasn't there a prosecutor who starved himself to death? Yeah, there was. The prosecutor who vowed not to eat illegal rice starved to death. Wasn't it 1947? That was horrible. He, a public prosecutor, proved it himself that people couldn't survive by adhering to the law. That prosecutor had grown tired of the government's charging people with doing whatever they could to survive. And he proclaimed that he was never going to buy black market rice again. In 1947, he starved to death when he was only in his mid-30s. The law prohibited people from buying black market rice. But that was the only way to survive. In that case, was the Food Control Act a bad law itself? The death of the prosecutor was seen as a desperate message to the government about the unjustness of that law. I guess there's no more voice acting. We rounded up people with bags of rice and lined them up at the temporary inspection point next to the station. It was like a military tribunal. We inspected their bags and confiscated everything that they bought at the black market.
ご婦人方はみんな泣かれるんですよ。
They sold everything they owned to buy the rice. Just that one little short line was voiced. They pleaded that if we confiscated the rice, how would they feed their starving children?
道理だな。
Yet they forbade you from going after the sellers, so it was absolutely unfair from the view of the people. Everyone was on edge. If they heard a police inspection was set up at the next station, they'd jump off the train and run. We were aware of these people, so we set up several officers near jump-off spots in order to capture them. I remember chasing after women carrying several kilos of rice on them. That was when I first met the old man.
いやー、驚きましたよ。私の親父にね、あまりにもそっくりだったんですよ。私はね、てっきり死んだと思っていた親父が帰ってきてくれたんじゃないかなって本気で思いましたよ。
I was chasing a man who was running away from the inspection point. There was no way for him to run with a heavy bag of rice on him. So either he'd get arrested with the illegal rice, or escape by ditching the rice that he bought by selling all his belongings. In other words, if a person is being chased by the police, that person can't provide his family any rice to eat. Of course, I felt guilty about that. I knew people had to buy rice to survive. So we had a tacit agreement to let those who ditched the rice and ran get away. Tacit? I always thought the same thing as I chased them. Please, throw it away. I didn't want to catch him, because I didn't want to hear him crying and pleading in distress. It was then that the old man showed up. He looked exactly like my dead father. I was dumbfounded. Then all of a sudden he punched me in the head. If a father disciplines you as a child, you lower your head in apology. I was so happy to see my father alive that I couldn't hold my joy in. The old man said, "Let him go." When I heard his voice, I realized he wasn't my father, so I thought I'd arrest him for assaulting a policeman. But a young man like me, who'd barely grown any hairs yet, was no match for an older man used to fighting.
いや、たっぷり説教をもらいましたよ。大通りの真ん中でぶちのめされた挙句に普通に考えたらそんなのに耳なんか傾けないですよね。でもあの時の私はどうかしてたんです。どうしてもおやっさんが親父に見えちゃって、おとなしく言うことに耳を傾けることしかできなかったんです。
まあそこで小づいただけじゃなく、男の器量もきっちりと見せられたのがこいつの大したところだったの。今時じゃすっかり珍しくなっちまった古き良き時代の生き残りじゃった。
Despite my age, I still needed a father. I needed someone to look up to, and to show me what makes a man a man. When I think about it, I really did have two fathers. The old man was a father, a brother, and my best friend. But now, here he lies with his body, head, arms, and legs all dismembered, and his right arm hasn't been found. He taught me how to be a man, how to enjoy alcohol, how to play mahjong, and with that right arm he gave me a good beating when I did something wrong. But that right arm is still missing.
星の目星は
ねえ、もちろんついています。おやっさんの右腕ももちろん取り返しますし、この借りもきっちり返します。
They're running Hinamizawa from the shadows, and inciting this collective crime they call the Dam Protest. The Sonozaki family. I declare war within myself. I already know who my enemy is. So of course Oishi thinks it's the Sonozaki family, which is a pretty good guess, to be honest. So, like last time, it's been about a week since I played this, so I don't exactly remember where we're at here. I don't know why I forgot Rena's name last time. I was just like, what's her name? I can't remember. Do I have the 7 fragments yet? No, I don't. Fragment must mean something else than I'm thinking. I'm thinking each of these is a fragment, right? But I'm guessing they're not. Has Satoko Hojo been hospitalized yet? I don't think... Oh no, she has. Okay. I thought Satoko... Like, I knew he mentioned it. That he was regretful that he hadn't gotten to her earlier. But I didn't know if that actually occurred yet or not. Satoshi-kun is a good brother who takes great care of his sister. He went to visit Satoko-chan straight after school, and kept encouraging her to get better every day. Without even hearing Satoshi-kun's stories, it's obvious to me that Satoko-chan never had a good relationship with her step-parents. She especially didn't get along with her stepfather. Satoko-chan even called a child-abusing hotline once. Not only that, her parents ended up dying in an accident, so she just wasn't able to withstand all that damage. Satoko-chan is still very young, so everything must have been horrible for her to go through. Fortunately, she has a wonderful brother. Emotional wounds are hard to heal. But nothing heals those wounds better than love from family members. I'm sure that one day Satoko-chan will be able to smile again. She's still in shock, but when she talks to Satoshi-kun, she smiles a little bit. Oishi from the police department keeps requesting to see her, but I think I need to protect her for just a little longer. While he's passionate about his job, I wish he'd be a touch more sensitive. If he reminds her of her parents' accident, her emotional wounds will start to open again. That's the one point I worry about with Satoko-chan. I heard someone knocking on the door. It was Chikano-san. It doesn't look right wearing a nurse's uniform like that. She's a licensed doctor, so she should wear a white coat and act like one. Maybe this is fun for her, but I think she might be insulting the real nurses. I didn't say anything though.
入江先生、ちょっとよろしいですか？
ああ、はい。それではサトシ君、私は失礼します。
あ、はい。サトシ君、こんにちは。サトコちゃんと遊んであげててね。ずっと一人でいるからきっと寂しいと思うの。ね？
そんなことございませんわよ。
ではサトシ君、よろしくお願いします。
I got up and let Satoshi-kun take over.
ところで、何かありましたか？
ここではなんですので、所長室で。
Chikano-san smiled meaningfully. Usually, smiles bring happy feelings. But when it comes to Takano-san, that's rarely the case.
それは本当ですか？
ええ。簡易検査の結果、レベル3以上と思われる高い発症レベルの可能性が指摘されました。彼女をさらに入院させ、より精度の高い検査を行う必要があります。結果待ちですが、私の見たところ、レベル4の可能性すらあり得るかと。
Chikano's hand sparkled in a weird way. There's a reason for that. For us, finding patients in the terminal stage is a valuable boon to our research. In fact, as a result of dissecting the murder suspect from last year, we made great progress in our research. In other words, we finally managed to isolate the pathogen. We also discovered that when the host dies, the pathogen melts away within a few hours. Once that happens, it's undetectable. That's why we never found the pathogen when we performed autopsies. Our research made a lot of progress after that. What we found in this past year has easily surpassed what the late Dr. Takano found in decades. We're now studying the nature, the effect, and the symptoms of the pathogen, as well as treatments and vaccines. In other words, a living specimen who's at the terminal stage is a necessity for our research. However, we rarely find a patient who's gone that far, who reached level 5. Hinamizawa syndrome once created huge numbers of level 5 patients, but today it doesn't have such potency. Because of that, we have to secure level 5 patients, or patients who are close to reaching level 5 as quickly as possible. Satoko-chan possibly qualifies to be that next sacrifice. Qualifies even. To keep this strange disease a secret, we can't let patients who may be at level 5 go. We have to run more tests first, then we'll figure out what to do next. In any case, Satoko-chan seems so calm. Her behavior is nothing like the man from last year. Initial tests are in error sometimes. We'll have to wait for the results of a more detailed test to determine how serious her condition is.
わかりました。
経過観察のため、入院スタッフの皆さんへの手配をお願いいたします。
That sounds like a formal answer, but if the results come back positive, that will be the green light for her dissection. I don't know Satoko-chan that well, but I've known her brother, Satoshi-kun, through the baseball team for a long time. How could I dissect the apple of Satoshi-kun's eye? I can feel scary images flashing in my head for the first time.
ご安心を。万事すでに手配させておりますわ。
She smiled as if telling me that the dissection is already being prepared for too. Is it just her who's smiling? Am I smiling like her too? When I dissected that man last year, I did feel guilt beforehand. But once I started, it was like I was in paradise. All the pieces of the puzzle that were left by the late Dr. Takano fell into place. And at the same time they didn't. How exciting it was. Knowing that we are the first ones to take the first steps to solve a mystery, that is. I don't even know how to explain this feeling to those who've never experienced it. There's no way to describe it with words. The only thing I can say is that even a year later, I still remember it vividly. So if the results show that Satoshi-kun's beloved sister is to be dissected, can I control myself? Can I stay calm? But that means I'm a failure of a human being. I know very well that the Hojo family was treated poorly by the villagers, and I know what Satoko-chan had to go through. Also, I know Satoshi-kun loves his sister, who is his one and only blood relative. How can I dissect Satoko-chan using my research as an excuse? I didn't feel much guilt for the man from last year, but I feel unbearable guilt towards Satoko-chan. That means what I did last year was very sinful. I don't care if a stranger dies, but I don't want Satoko-chan to die. That's not right. All lives are equally precious. I tried to convince myself that he was a violent murderer, but maybe he only became that way because he was at the terminal stage. I don't know anything about him before he became deranged. Maybe he was a model citizen who was worthy of respect. Unfortunately, he became ill and ended up doing what he did. Maybe he was a victim himself. Just like my father. I know more about Hinamizawa syndrome than anybody. This disease makes people act in bizarre ways, without those people realizing it. So when the people at the terminal stage do such strange and violent things, one should be sympathetic. I already knew that back when I decided to go down this path. I should have remembered it sooner, but I only did just now. I finally realized what sinful research I'm working on. Satoko Hojo's detailed test results came back. The results say level 5. She's at the terminal stage of the terminal stage. It's actually a surprising result. In last year's case, the patient was extremely deranged. According to Takano-san's records, he complained about itching coming from the lymph nodes all over his body and wanted to claw at his throat, just as the late Dr. Takano mentioned. But Satoko-chan isn't displaying such symptoms. Even in the late Takano's data, throat clawing is said to be a characteristic symptom of terminal stage patients. However, not all patients experience that symptom. Besides, emotional expression is very different in each person. Even if it's the same emotion, one patient may express it rather violently, and another may express it calmly. There's no way of knowing just by looking at a person. But Satoko-chan's detailed test results say she's at the terminal stage of the terminal stage, level 5. In other words, she may be feeling what the man from last year was feeling. It's just that she isn't expressing that feeling in the same way the man was. Hinamizawa syndrome affects the frontal lobes of the brain. It stimulates the most primitive of emotions, doubt, very strongly. As a result, terminal patients are trapped in delusions and paranoia, and end up committing horrible crimes. Satoko-chan seems to show improvement when she's exchanging friendly words with Satoshi-kun. But there's a paranoia stirring inside her that may put her in a deranged state at any moment. I can't let her leave the clinic like this. However, if things go according to the manual, I will have to make a decision on her dissection. My decision will only be a formality. I can't actually refuse. Takano-san appears to be already working on the dissection schedule. That plan will then come to me. Would I feel the same way while dissecting Satoko-chan? Would I be able to experience that trance once again? No, the question is, can I fight the temptation? As I pretend to question myself, I'm letting Takano-san prepare things on her own. By doing so, am I passively agreeing to Satoko-chan's dissection? If possible, I want to save Satoko-chan. I don't want her to be a sacrifice for this research. I don't want to dissect her. Then what about the man from last year? Do I only care about the lives of the people I know? If I don't dissect her, do I let her live and leave the clinic? Do I simply wait for her to become deranged and commit a horrible crime? And then she'll end up here, just like the man from last year, and I'll end up dissecting her anyway. The man from last year was dissected alive and kept that way for several months. With his skull left open, he wasn't allowed to die for several months. He was kept alive just for our cruel experiments. I don't want to do that to her. I don't know what to do. Even debating and agonizing over it is leading towards consent to her dissection by elimination.